Unit 12, Part 3. Okay, so there are your 4 types of categorical proposition we ran through in Part 2. Universal inclusion, that's the A. Particular inclusion, right, I. Universal exclusion, right? None of the subject class is included in the predicate class. For example, no Australians are surfers. It's going to be E. Particular exclusion, right? So it's always, there are 4 types of categoricals. You find out which one a certain sentence is by answering 2 questions, right? Are you asserting that the subject class is included or excluded from the predicate class? Second question, are you saying that all of the subject class or only some of the subject class is included / excluded from the predicate class? So you get 4 types, okay? Universal inclusion, A. Particular inclusion, I. Universal, so these are 2 exclusion, they're E and O. Universal exclusion, E. Particular exclusion, O. Where do these letters come from? So they are the first 2 letters of these 2 Latin words, affirmo and nego. Okay, affirmo means I affirm, and nego is Latin for I deny, right? Think negation, I negate, right? So you can just, if you remember these words, you don't need to know Latin to sort of guess which one is saying I'm affirming and which one I'm denying. So these are going to, so the A and the I are going to be the 2 kinds of inclusion relation. And the 2, so it's the vowels. It's the first 2 vowels, another vowel down here, the O, but you don't forget about that. The first 2 vowels of the word affirmo, A, F, I, right? Vowels, A, E, I, O, U, right? The first 2 vowels of the word affirmo are the names of the 2 inclusion relations, right? Of the 2 kinds of categoricals that are inclusion relations. Universal inclusion, particular inclusion. And the E and the O, the first 2 vowels of the word nego, are the names of the 2 kinds of exclusion relation. Okay, so that's sort of how it's easy to remember. If you're in the exam and you're, which one's which? Oh, I can bust out the words affirmo and nego. Okay, the first 2 vowels of affirmo, well, that means affirm. So that's going to be inclusion. I'm saying that the subject class is included in the predicate class, right? Good, so that's going to be the A and the I. The other one, nego, E and O, so those are, nego sounds like negations, that's going to be deny, so that's going to be exclusion, right? So I say these 2 are the 2 letters of the inclusion relation. These are the 2 letters of the exclusion relation, the first 2 vowels of each word. And the other thing, the first letter is always the universal inclusion or exclusion, and the second letter is the particular inclusion or exclusion. So I'm going to give you quantifiers here. So the quantifiers which will go with the logical form of these, right? In each case, the logical form, as we'll see soon, of the universal inclusion and universal exclusion, it's going to require the use of the universal quantifier, right? Well, it's universal inclusion, exclusion, right? All Australians are surfers. It's going to require the universal quantifier. So, of course, this is slightly less obvious, but no Australians are surfers. I'm going to be saying for all X, if X is Australian, then X is not a surfer, right? That's looking ahead a bit, but that's what it's going to be, okay? It's going to require the use of the universal. So universal inclusion, first letter of affirmo. Universal exclusion, first letter of nego. Particular inclusion, right? Some Australians are surfers. What quantifier do we use for some? Right? Both of these have the word some. We always use the existential quantifier, right? Logical form for the logical form of some Australians are surfers is going to be, this. There exists an X such that X is Australian and a surfer, right? Some Australians are surfers. There exists an X such that X is Australian and a surfer. But I'll explain that through the Venn diagram. But it's clear that it's going to require the existential quantifier, right? So affirmo, that's, so I, which one's that? That's particular inclusion. And what's O? Okay, Well, it's going to be one of the exclusion relations because it is a vowel of the word nego, which is the inclusion one. Is it the universal exclusion or the particular exclusion? Well, it's the second letter, and the second letter of each is the particular. So it's particular exclusion, right? So first letter of each is universal. Second letter of each is particular, and the first word is for inclusion. Second word for exclusion. So that should tell you, right? Hold on to that, and you'll be able to say, hopefully, present it with a categorical, whether it's A, E, I, or O. In fact, let's have a look. Let's do a couple of examples from Unit 1. So exercises, page 244. What kind of categorical is no man is an island? No man is an island. Okay, what's my subject class? What's my predicate class? My subject class is men, right? And my predicate class is islands. No man is an island. So I've got my subject class and my predicate class, and now my question is, what relation between these classes is asserted? What is it, categorical? A categorical sentence is a sentence where the subject and predicate are both classes and that it asserts an inclusion or exclusion relation between those classes. More elaborately, particular or universal inclusion or exclusion. So what's going on here, right? Let me answer my two questions. No man is an island. Inclusion or exclusion? Exclusion. No man is an island. Okay, exclusion. So it's going to be either this or this. I'm saying that the class of men is excluded from the class of islands, right? No man is an island, right? Okay, universal or particular? Okay, so I know it's an E or an O, right? If I'm asked, what is it? Is it A, E, I, or O? No man is an island. I'm saying it's universal exclusion, right? That's my answer. I've determined it as, is it universal inclusion, particular inclusion, universal exclusion, or particular exclusion? No man is an island. I'm saying the subject class, men, all of them are excluded from the predicate class islands. No man is an island. It's universal exclusion. It's exclusion and it's universal exclusion. None of the men are islands. If you're a man, you're not an island. So it's an E. That's the answer. It's an E form. Okay? Next one. Anybody knows that. This is 1B. Anybody knows that. My subject class is people. Let's say bodies. That would be fine. Let's say people, right? Anybody's referring to people. My predicate class, I have to say things that know that. Okay? My predicate class is things that know that. Anybody knows that. Okay. So I've got my two classes. People, things that know that. What is the relation that's being asserted between the two classes? Is it inclusion or exclusion? It's actually inclusion. I'm saying that the class of people are included in the class of things that know that. Is it universal or particular inclusion? Anybody knows that is universal inclusion, right? I'm saying that all of the people, anybody knows that. Means you take any one of them, he or she knows that. He or she is included in the class of beings that know that, things that know that. So this is universal inclusion. That's your A form, right? That's like all Australians are surfers. So it's our A form. Universal inclusion, right? So again, universal inclusion. It's inclusion, so it's from this word. It's from the word affirmo, because the affirmo is the word for the inclusion relation. I looked at the question, I determined my subject and predicate classes, and I asked myself, what is the relation the sentence is asserting between these two classes? And I answered, it's inclusion, and now I know it's either an A or an I by saying it's inclusion, because these are the letters of the inclusion relation. So which one of the two? Is it A or the I? Well, I said it's universal. I said, is it universal inclusion or particular inclusion? I answered, anyone knows that. It's universal inclusion. Universal inclusion, it's an A. Because the universal is the first letter, particular inclusion, exclusion, it's always the second letter of each of the words. Okay, now quickly, See, every dog has his day. Every dog has its day. Class, subject class is dogs. Predicate class, things that have their day. Every dog has its day. It's universal inclusion. Every dog has its day. All of the dogs are included in, all of the subject class is included within the predicate class. There are some people who don't like Picasso. Okay, this one's a bit tricky. There are some people who don't like Picasso. Read through Klenk, she'll explain that you've got to have positive subject classes, subject and predicate. Big mistake to think of the predicate class as things that don't like Picasso. Wrong. The predicate class is things that do like Picasso, because, as she explains, the negative class, if you were to take it as a relation between people and things that don't like Picasso, the class of things that don't like Picasso is way too broad, right? It's way too broad to capture the logical force of what's being said, right? It includes atoms and space-time points and so on. Klenk says this. You want the classes to be, you want the relation, okay, to get the logical form, or to get working towards the logical form of there are some people who don't like Picasso, you have to take this subject and predicate classes, right? This is a categorical. It's asserting a relation between two classes. What classes, right? People and things that do like Picasso. Okay, and what's being said about that relation? There are some people who don't like Picasso. I'm saying that some of the subject class are excluded from the predicate class. This is a particular exclusion. There are some people who don't like Picasso, right? Subject class is people, predicate class is things that like Picasso, people like Picasso, let's say. Right? And I'm saying that if you're in the subject, some of the things in the subject class, people, are excluded from the predicate class. It's particular exclusion. Oh God, is it A, I, E, or O? What letter is particular exclusion? Okay, easy. You just answer the two questions. Exclusion. So it's from the word nego, because nego is the word for I deny, is Latin for I deny. Think negation. I'm negating that the subject class is included in the predicate class. So it's exclusion now. Second question, is it universal or particular exclusion? I said some people don't like Picasso, some particular. Some is particular. It's particular exclusion, right? So it's just an O. Some people don't like Picasso is O form, right? But see how I worked it out. You just ask and answer. There's two questions. Inclusion or exclusion, universal or particular, and know how to get to the letter of that one. Inclusion, A or I. Exclusion, E or O. Universal, A or E, the first letter. Universal, particular is the next letter. As long as you know how to bust out the right things, it's sort of intuitive that you'd have the universal first, the existential second, blah, blah, blah. All right. Let's just do nobody, okay, this is E. Nobody understands modern art. What's my subject? People. Nobody understands modern art. Subject class is people. Predicate class, things that understand modern art. Okay? Nobody understands modern art. So, got my subject class and my predicate class. People and things that understand modern art, and things that understand modern art. Got my subject and predicate class. Now, what relation between these two classes is being asserted by this sentence? Nobody understands modern art. Okay, sounds like exclusion, right? And it sounds like universal exclusion. Nobody understands modern art means if you're in the class of people, all of the people in the class of people, if you will, are excluded from the class of things that understand modern art. Nobody understands modern art. All of the people are excluded from the class of things that understand modern art. So it's universal exclusion. All right. Exclusion, so it's from the word nego. Universal exclusion, so it's E. It's the first letter. Universal, so it's the first letter. It's an E form. nobody understands modern art is E4.